In the early hours of August 8, 1963, a travelling post office train was heading from Glasgow to London. It wasn't an ordinary train. It contained high-value packages filled with banknotes being returned to the Bank of England. The total haul was roughly £2.6 million, over £50 million today. Bruce Reynolds, a sophisticated thief and antiques dealer, spent months planning the heist. He assembled a dream team of 15 criminals, including getaway drivers, muscle, and a mysterious man known only as Old Pete, who had inside knowledge of the railway's schedules and security. The gang gathered at Sears Crossing in Buckinghamshire. To stop the massive steam train, they used a simple but brilliant trick. They covered the green signal light and used a 6-volt battery to power a false red light, forcing the unsuspecting driver to pull the train to a halt. The train driver, Jack Mills, climbed down to see why the signal was red. He was immediately met by masked men. When he resisted, he was struck over the head with a metal bar. The robbers then decoupled the engine and the first two carriages, which contained the money, from the rest of the train. The robbers intended to move the engine to a nearby bridge where their trucks were waiting. However, their hired train driver realized he couldn't operate this specific locomotive. They were forced to drag the injured Jack Mills back into the cab and make him drive the train to the bridge. At Bridego Bridge, the gang smashed their way into the high-security carriage. They intimidated the postal workers inside and began a frantic human chain, tossing 120 heavy mailbags filled with cash into their waiting Land Rovers. The entire physical robbery took less than 30 minutes. The gang fled to Leatherslade Farm, a remote hideout they had purchased weeks in advance. It was only 27 miles from the crime scene. They listened to police radio reports, laughing as they realized the authorities were searching hundreds of miles away, thinking the gang had fled to London. Inside the farmhouse, the mood was celebratory. The men were so overwhelmed by the sheer volume of cash that they began playing a game of Monopoly using real £5 and £10 notes from the heist. This moment of arrogance would eventually become their undoing. As the police investigation ramped up, the gang realized the heat was too intense. They decided to split the money and scatter. They paid a contact to clean the farmhouse and wipe away all fingerprints. Then they vanished into the night, heading for various safe houses across the UK. The man hired to clean the farm got scared and fled without doing the job. When the police discovered Leatherslade Farm a few days later, they found a goldmine of evidence. Crucially, they found the Monopoly set and several ketchup bottles covered in the robbers' fingerprints. Scotland Yard's flying squad moved with lightning speed. Within weeks, thanks to the fingerprints found at the farm, they began picking up members of the gang. Roger Caudry was the first to be arrested after he tried to pay for a car using stacks of consecutive, uncirculated banknotes. In 1964, the robbers were brought to trial. The public was fascinated by the gentleman thieves, but the judge was not amused. He handed down massive sentences of 30 years each, harsher than many murder sentences at the time, to deter anyone else from attacking the Queen's Mail. The story didn't end with prison. In 1965, Ronald Biggs, one of the most famous members, climbed a 30-foot wall at Wandsworth Prison using a rope ladder and dropped into a waiting furniture van. He fled to Paris, underwent plastic surgery, and eventually made his way to Australia and Brazil. Ronnie Biggs spent 36 years as a fugitive. Because Brazil had no extradition treaty with the UK, he lived openly in Rio de Janeiro, becoming a minor celebrity. He recorded songs with the Sex Pistols and sold "I Was There" t-shirts to tourists, mocking the British authorities for decades. Bruce Reynolds also fled the country, living in Mexico and Canada under false identities for 5 years. However, his money eventually ran out. He returned to England in secret, but was recognized and arrested in Torquay in 1968. He served 10 years before being released. While the public often viewed the robbers as lovable rogues, the driver, Jack Mills, never recovered. The head injury he sustained during the robbery caused him constant pain and trauma. He died in 1970, and many believe the stress of the heist significantly shortened his life. In 2001, old and in poor health, Ronnie Biggs finally returned to the UK voluntarily. He famously said he wanted a pint of bitter before he died. He was immediately sent back to prison to finish his sentence, though he was released on compassionate grounds in 2009. Of the £2.6 million stolen, the vast majority was never recovered. Much of it was laundered through small businesses, spent on expensive lawyers, or hidden in offshore accounts. Some gang members died in poverty, while others lived comfortably off their secret shares for years. The Great Train Robbery became a staple of British pop culture, inspiring dozens of movies, books, and songs. It represented a turning point in crime, the moment when old-school London villains became international legends, even as their lives were ruined by the aftermath. The last surviving member of the gang died in 2019. The Bridego Bridge was renamed the Train Robbers Bridge, and it remains a site of fascination for true crime fans. It was a crime of precision and luck that proved even the most perfect plan can be destroyed by a bottle of ketchup.